Hello Capsuleers, Evenoob here and welcome to the T1 Frigate PvP series. Today we're going to talk about the mighty Tristan. The Tristan is probably one of the most versatile T1 Frigate PvP ships. In fact, it's probably one of the most versatile T1 frigates in general, because it allows for you to make so many different fits, so many different sort of styles of play, and it actually teaches you quite a lot about the game. So the Tristan is, as you know, a frigate. It is a tier 1 frigate, and it's certainly got a lot of cool little features. It dons itself with having 3 high, mid, and low slots. It has a bonus to small hybrid turret damage. It's got a 7.5% bonus to that. So that's blasters and railguns. It also has a 10% bonus to your drone's hit points and tracking speed, giving it quite a nifty little drone bay of 40 M3, which allows for you to have a few fits. Now, we're going to talk about 3 particular fits today. We're going to talk about a kite fit, made to kite your opponent out. This is generally used to fight against brawlers. We're going to talk about a brawling fit, which is made to get up close and personal with your opponent, to fight really close range. And we're also going to be talking about a neutralizer fit, made to take your enemy's capacity out, rendering them useless and then picking them off. Now, the first fit we're going to talk about is the kite fit. The kiting methodology of PvP is essentially getting out of range of your opponent, particularly opponents which are made to get in close and personal with you, slowing them down and fighting them without them being able to damage you. The Tristan, because it can use small hybrids at a bonus, the railguns are used generally to give yourself an advantage against ships that will be coming in nice and close to finish you off. Now, I've put together a quick fit here. This is preference. There is a couple of variations of this fit. I prefer this one, and I'll explain why in a second, in which we've got 2 railguns. We've got our acceleration being an Afterburner, and I'll talk about that. We've got a Webifier, a warp disruptor, some injectors and some auxiliary thrusters to give us additional speed, drone damage amplifier, and a damage control. Now, of course, you can play with a micro warp drive. That is not an issue at all. Personally, I like afterburner fits for kite ships, and the reason for this is because of warp scramblers. If you do get warp scrambled running a micro warp drive, you will render your micro warp drive useless, and if your micro warp drive is useless, you will basically be caught in a spider web in which your opponent will get in close enough to apply maximum damage, rendering you dead. I find that I have more of a chance of winning with an afterburner. Some people who are more confident in their piloting skills can use the micro warp drive. It will limit you in terms of the fights you can take. I find the afterburner more versatile, therefore I use an afterburner with additional injectors and auxiliary thrusters to get me a speed over 1,000. If you use the micro warp drive, you will have a speed over 2,500 depending on how you set it up. However, personally, I find the afterburner a bit more versatile in getting me out of sticky situations. Now, the Prototype Gauss Guns, which are the railguns, I've got 250mm railguns on here. As you can see, the default fall-off range is 23 kilometers and the optimal range is within 16 kilometers, which is fine. This is dependent on what ammo you use on these guns as well, so be wary of that. Antimatter giving you maximum damage will probably get you within a range of 15 kilometers, whereas iron, which is going to give you the maximum range of about 23 kilometers, is going to lower your damage. So make sure you take a couple of different ammo sets with you, depending on who you are fighting. Generally, I like to take antimatter and iron. However, that's completely dependent and up to you. Some people like to take 3 or 4 different ammo types. Some people just like to take the one set. Be aware though that as a minimum, you should take a long range and a short range set of ammo. That way you can switch over if you are in a situation where your opponent is getting out of range. We do have a Webifier, which has a range of 10 kilometers. That's the X5 Enduring Stasis Webifier. This is simply used to slow down your opponent if they are getting too close to you. The Webifier has reduced your enemy's velocity by 55%. Be aware, if you do get Webified yourself, your velocity will also be reduced to about 600-700 meters per second. So you need to be careful, and you need to make sure that you cycle your Webifier accordingly. The Warp Disruptor, the Enduring one, has a range of 20 kilometers. This is perfect. This allows for you to keep your target pinned down as you beat them down essentially and stop them from moving. Pretty much every PvP ship I fly, I would put a damage control on it regardless of the fit. It's just a bit of, it's just worth it. You're going to get extra resistances, you're going to get extra EHP. It gives you a little bit of an edge when it comes to taking damage. If you are flying a completely paper ship, you're probably going to lose if you get one-shotted or two-shotted. So you're better off having just a little bit of resistance on there as well. Because we are kiting, I want a drone damage amplifier. This will give you quite a bit of a boost in terms of damage, because your drones, if you are teched up to Tech 2 drones, you're going to apply a significant amount of damage for a Tech 1 frigate. And of course the overdrives and the auxiliary thrusters, they are used to give us additional speed. Without them, we'd be below 1,000 meters per second. With them, we are over 1,000 meters per second. So that is pretty much the fit in essence. I will link obviously all the fits below in the description, but let's go and try and find a fight where I can calmly talk you through what's happening during that fight. Okay, so I have scanned down a Tristan in this site. Actually, the Tristan is behind me now, so I landed on the gate and the Tristan is right behind me. If he does follow me into the gate, then we will be prepared. So the first thing we're going to do is when we land, we are going to click the beacon and we are going to orbit straight away. Overheat all of your modules and select them. As you can see, the Tristan has actually come in behind me, and as soon as his velocity goes to 0, we're going to target him and we're going to drop all of our stuff onto him. Now we're going to make sure we orbit him as well. And we're going to keep our orbit on him. He's going down pretty quickly. Turn off your overheats. Turn off all of your overheats. And keep that orbit going. If he does get within 10, make sure you turn on your web. He is going pretty well though. He is going to probably kill us. Those drones are doing a lot of damage onto us, so we'll probably lose this fight. He might have Tech 2 guns as well. That's okay. We had a good fight. So make sure when you do have a fight, you type in good fight in local. Now, it all just depends on who you get engaged with. Tristans are very versatile, but that was a very good fight. We did what we could, and we can have a look at our kill report to see what we died to. So he also had Hobgoblin IIs. Chances are that if we had a ammo type that we could go out to 20 kilometers, then we could have potentially won that fight. But that's okay. Look, this is part of PvP, it's part of learning. If I had Tech 2 railguns, I just didn't put Tech 2 railguns on, we could have potentially won that fight as well. His fit could have been a bit different in the sense that he could have had armor tanking on, whereas we had our acceleration on, but it was a very close fight. Essentially, that's PvP for the Kitey Tristan. We did pretty much everything perfectly. We could have potentially put in like a larger orbit radius and overheated our Afterburner there, but we did everything okay. There was nothing really incorrect there that we could have looked back on. So, Kitey Tristan, that's essentially how you use the Kitey Tristan. And obviously, if it was another ship, like a something that was brawly, something that would have come in and wanted to be up close, you would have had a much larger chance to win that fight. because he had the drones that were applying quite a bit of damage. He could have potentially had extra drone amplifiers. He definitely had an armor repairer, so that's essentially why we lost that fight. Let's move on to the next profile. Alright, so the next ship type for the Tristan is the Brawler. Now, obviously with the Kitey Tristan fight that we just had, you noticed that the opponent had a armor repairer. For those who don't know, you can actually repair while fighting, and the armor repairer is probably, an ancillary armor repairer is probably going to be your best bet. So I've put together a fit here, and you're going to notice a couple of things about this fit. Firstly, in the guns, we've actually put in blasters. Now, the blaster's optimal range is 690 meters. So this is a pure brawling ship. We need to get in close, we need to get in personal, we need to stop the opponent from running away, and we need to apply maximum damage really, really fast. So I've put in the Tech 1.5 blasters, which is the Modal light electron particle accelerators, 2 of them, and the damage ammo type that's going to be maximum damage for that. I've kept the Afterburner, I've kept the web, but I've changed the Disruptor to a Scrambler. I've just put in the Tech 2 one, but you can put in the X5 Enduring Scram if you want. The Tech 2 one just has a slight bit more range, and you know, I just prefer it because I'm just used to it. Kept the damage control, but I have put in the Ancillary Armor Repairer. This will repair 156 HP per 4.8 seconds. That's quite a bit of HP for a frigate, so you'll notice that your repair ticks are going to save you when you're dying. With the steel plate, if you don't have the power, or you want to potentially reduce the amount of power used on your power grid, you can replace the steel plate for a resistance profile, but I've just put in the steel plate there. And in my rigs, I've put in thermal, kinetic, and explosive, which is going to bring our reduction of damage up in terms of our resistances to about 60% on thermal and kinetic, and 45% on explosive. So we've got about 4.7k EHP. We are outputting 142.2 DPS, more than what the Kitey Tristan was doing. However, from a capacity perspective, we've only got about a minute of capacity. What does that mean? That means that if we're running our guns, we're running our rep, we're running our scram, we're running our afterburner and our web, we basically have a minute to win the fight, or else we'll run out of capacity. Now, if you come up against someone that's also got the neutralization fit, or a newt, then you're going to run out of capacity very, very fast. So how can you tell basically how you're going to do fare in a fight? So essentially, you're not going to always have your repper on. You'll notice that when I turn my repper off, because green means that it's active, we're actually cap stable. So that's good. That's really, really good. What about our web? If we have our web off, then we're about a minute in with cap stable. What about our afterburner? So if we have our afterburner off, we get another 30 seconds. So this gives you a good idea of how to cycle your modules. So when you're running a ship that's not cap stable, you're going to want to cycle modules to ensure that you remain cap stable. Now, I did just do criminal activity. So what you should also check is your security status once you've done something like I've just done. So we're still at 1.3, which is fine. We're not going to get blown up in high security space. It's when you dip below 2 that you need to be worried. But right now we're okay. So I'm going to go and buy this. I'm going to wait for my timer to go away, and then I'm going to go out and try and find another fight to show you guys how to brawl.
Okay guys, so we are coming into a novice military beacon now. And I can see here on scan a Condor and a Merlin. Now, before we go in and have a look, we need to make sure that we're not getting ourselves into some serious business here. So the Merlin would potentially be shield tanked, and it would have bonuses to small hybrid also. And the Condor here it's got light missiles and rocket damage. Now, it's a bit hard to tell whether these two are fighting, or if they're in it together. So what we can do is we can basically just warp in and figure it out. Now, in essence, to just show you how the Brawler operates, I'm going to do this, but generally I don't recommend it. Also keep your scan up to 14 AU to see if there's any other frigates. But I'm going to activate the gate. I'm going to pre-click all of my modules, and I'm going to overheat as well. If I can get the Condor in range, I will go for it. Looks like they are fighting potentially. So I'm going to go straight for that Condor. Because I will not get a suspect status. It just depends on who I can get to first. Their velocity, I can have a look. So 1 is 6, the Merlin's actually quite slow. So I'm actually going to switch targets to the Merlin. If the Merlin doesn't warp off. Now, the tactic here is to not lock until you're close enough. And it looks like this Merlin's coming in for me. So this could be a good fight for us. The Merlin has locked me. And he's engaged first, so that's good for me. Just keep an eye on your shield as you do this. As your shield ticks, start ripping. And keep your reps up. Because he will be shield tanking. We'll probably lose this fight because he's probably got tick 2 shields. If we can get him out of shield, then we could potentially win the fight. Let's give ourselves a 500 meter orbit. Let's turn off the what do you call it? The Afterburner. We're gonna run out of nanite paste, but that's okay. I haven't put in extra. The shields are down. We could potentially win this now, guys. So it's all about keeping us cap stable. I'm gonna turn off the web so I don't lose my cap. Here we go. Good fight, guys. We've won the fight. So you could see there are a couple of things that occurred. Basically, I was running out of cap pretty fast. What I needed to do there was I needed to make sure that I was going through my modules and turning off what may have been unnecessary. I'm going to take this wreck. I'm going to just keep my D-scan up, make sure that that Condor doesn't come in and try to take me out. I should probably afterburn to this wreck, to be honest. So that was 3.9 mil worth of loot. So as you can see there, guys, I tried to talk through that. It's very difficult to do it all at once, but I did try to do my best to try and, I guess, show you guys how that works. But as you can see there, we did win that fight, and it came down to a couple of things. Firstly, I didn't suspect myself on purpose because I didn't want to lose the security standings. So I could have suspected myself, but I knew that when the Merlin was sort of coming towards me, that we were going to potentially be in for a fight anyway. So the Merlin came towards me, I locked it up, he locked me up, he or she locked me up, and then basically we decided to go for it together. So, you know, there was a couple of things that I sort of noted. The Merlins, their shield tanked, so I knew that if I could break the shield, that we would have a good chance of winning there. So breaking the shield was key. I was also keeping an eye on my overheat. You can notice my modules, they've had overheat damage. My warp scrambler, for example, is almost out. Now, if that was 100% damaged, I would no longer be able to warp scram, and that means I would have lost the fight because they could have walked off. So I was keeping an eye on my overheats. I was also keeping an eye on my capacity, because if my capacity went down to 0, all my modules would deactivate. So things like turning off the Afterburner, turning off the Stasis Webifier because we were nice and close, They made a bit of a difference. Overheating your guns is very important. Make sure you overheat your guns. That's going to give you an extra bit of damage. But you also, if you notice, I've got all my passive modules up as well, because when you do overheat, your passive modules do get damaged. So you need to make sure that you view your passive modules and you don't hide them. If you hide them, you're going to end up having a bad time. So because if you 100% damage your passive modules, then you could potentially lose those modules, which means you'll lose your damage control or your armor plate. So yeah, that was a decent fight, and of course, always say good fight after a fight. Don't leave them hanging. So you know, essentially that's how you fight in a brawler ship. And now the Newt ship is the same principle, so I'm not going to do a special fight for a Newt. The difference is that instead of guns, you're neutralizing your target, which means you're zeroing out their capacity. And if you zero out someone's capacity, they're not going to be able to fight back at you because all of their modules are deactivated. Alright, so I'm going to dock up here and I'm going to show you guys the Newt ship, and that should be the end of the video. Okay guys, here we are docked back up and we are looking at the Newt fit. Now, you guys might have already noticed this, but essentially the Newt fit is pretty much the exact same as the Brawler fit, plus the neutralizers. Now, I don't think you'll be able to run this fit under an alpha character. I'm not too sure why. There is a certain module here that's potentially missing. Apparently we don't meet the skill requirements. I think it's all around capacity potentially. I'm not too sure, but you can run it as an alpha if you have as an omega. I apologize. Now there's two variants of this. You can do the Naved Scope Nosferatus, which are two of them. If you run two of these, you will have cap stability. If you run the neutralizers, the standard ones, which actually take quite a bit of capacity away from your opponent, you can't run 3, but you can run 2. These ones neutralize 50 gigajoules per 6 seconds, I should say. But you will notice that your cap is at 19 seconds. So with a fit like this, you would potentially be turning off some of your other modules to give you cap stability. But even then, even with the 2 compact energy neutralizers and the warp scram, you still only have 48 seconds to win the fight. So with this fit, cap management is key. You need to basically play around with your cap. As you can see, 1 neutralizer and the scram will keep you stable, but it takes a bit more clicking to get to where you need to get to. With the fit with the Nosferatus, you don't take away as much cap. So you'll notice here, even if I put the compacts, you still can't run 3, you can only run 2. But if you are running all of your modules in this scenario, you are cap stable, but you're only leeching 9 points per 2.5 seconds, which is pretty much half what you would leech with the actual neutralizers. So guys, the principles of fighting with this ship, exactly the same. Get in nice and close, get right up in their grill, neutralize them, keep your armor tanking going. I run this with an armor tank to make sure that I've got a bit of buffer and a bit of tank, because it'll take some time to leech all of that cap. So get in nice and close, cap them out, get your drones on them to apply the damage, and because they have no modules working, if you have capped them out, then your drones will finish them off with you having to do very little to no work. And that brings us to the end of the video. I hope you guys enjoyed. Look, I do apologize on the timing of this video. It's been about 2 to 3 weeks since my last upload. Unfortunately, you might tell that I've actually recorded half of this video earlier and the other half a bit later because my voice has changed a bit. I haven't been feeling the best, but hopefully you guys enjoyed. The next video, I'm not too sure if I'm going to do the Kestrel or the Merlin. If you would like to see the Kestrel, give this video a like, If you would like to see the Merlin, put a comment in the comment section below. Either way, if you did enjoy the video, or if you have some tips or some tricks that I might have missed out on, put it in the comment section for other players to see. I know I don't get everything every time perfectly, but EVE is so big and so complicated and there's so many different opinions, so more than happy for you guys to put them in the comments and I'll highlight them as well for other players to see. Until next time, I'm EVE Noob signing out.